Welcome into this edition of lcpioneers.com Live, presented by Pios Stream, as we are with you 4 days a week, Tuesday through Friday, 11:30 a.m. Pacific Time on Facebook Live, and available to watch on demand inside the fan zone at lcpioneers.com, keeping you connected with student athletes, coaches, different members from the Lewis and Clark College community, as well as our alumni base. I appreciate you taking the time to join us today. I am Ryan Goff. I'm the play-by-play voice and director of athletic communications for Lewis and Clark, the Pioneers based out of Portland, Oregon, and members of the Northwest Conference, competing in 19 intercollegiate athletics programs among the 9 institutions, including ourselves, in the Northwest Conference. That's Northwest Oregon and the state of Washington, and over 430 institutions nationwide, a chance for our student athletes to compete at the NCAA Division III level on a national scale. And Lewis and Clark still with a very robust overseas study program in non-pandemic times, certainly those programs going on, a chance for our student athletes and students alike to get an experience in experiential liberal arts education globally. It is really a unique opportunity, again, located just 6 miles from downtown Portland, Oregon. Fun show today because we have the entire coaching staff of Lewis and Clark Cross Country. For the third time, we'll discuss things with head coach of cross country at Lewis and Clark, Matthew Barreau. But for the first time, we'll talk to first-year assistant coach Emily Thomas, a member of the class of 2013 from Lewis and Clark Cross Country, and the third fastest to ever run a race for Lewis and Clark women's cross country. So we're excited for that. That's coming up in just a few moments. We invite you to get in touch with the show, and you can do so by leaving us a comment in our Facebook Live feed. You can also email us anytime, sports@lclark.edu. That is a place where you can suggest future guests or let us know anything you want to see or enjoyed about the show. You can also find us on social media, our handle on both Twitter and Instagram, LC Pioneers. We're available at both of those places. We do invite you to stay in touch with us and also with our Winterim that is going on right now. It's part of the Bates Center for Entrepreneurship and Leadership. It is something that happens over the course of the week between the start of spring semester and in between the fall semester. And it's going on right now. There's some public opportunities that usually aren't there because of the virtual nature of this year's Winterim. You can join, including the student pitch competition coming up tomorrow at 1 p.m. Pacific time, by going to lcpioneers.com and clicking on that Winterim story. It's the second one on our slider as we record this show today. And it's a pretty exciting opportunity because especially student athletes have excelled within the entrepreneurship programs at Lewis and Clark, most recently with Invent Oregon champions being from Lewis and Clark men's basketball and men's tennis with Matthew Brown and Ramez Attia, respectively. And as I mentioned too, our YouTube playlist continues to get updated. You can find our interviews from all of our shows, including the first one dating back to March 31st of last year with head coach of cross country Matthew Barreau. And then we do keep you updated on everything COVID related as well pertaining to athletics. You can go to lcpioneers.com/COVID. Anything coming from the NCAA or the Northwest Conference, we will post links there if it impacts Lewis and Clark athletics. And then we also have a link to the Lewis and Clark College website as well. So with all that said, let's bring in our guests for today. Again, we have a two-shot here with both of our guests. It's Emily Thomas and Matthew Barreau, left to right on your screen, the coaching staff of Lewis and Clark Cross Country. I really appreciate you taking the time to join us. And Coach Barreau, you're a veteran of the show, I guess you could say, having an opportunity to appear for a third time. Let's start with you and get a feel for how things have been in your world as we kind of turn the calendar into 2021 and get ready for spring 2021. Let's start with a look at how things went for the cross-country team in the fall. Just kind of describe what you learned about your team over the course of the fall months.
Oh, we learned how to adjust. I think that it goes without saying that the team had to make adjustments as we went. It was not a normal season. We didn't have races. Some of the training protocols were different. So, the team obviously had to go through adjustments, but I think the coaching staff had to go through adjustments as well. Obviously, we brought on Coach Emily to help join the staff, and that was an adjustment with a new coach. But I think what we coaches needed to learn about how to adjust as well was important. We needed to try and provide some sort of regularity and consistency to the students in the drastic time of change, but we had to find different ways to be creative with workouts, be creative with opportunities to get together safely. It was a challenge for us too.
Yeah, and you describe Coach Thomas, who's screen left from our vantage point. You have a new assistant coach joining you. Describe what Emily can bring to your program and what you're excited most about adding her to the staff.
Energy and excitement. I'm very much a pragmatic type person. Here's the operation, let's go execute kind of person, and I'm a very inward thinker with my brain. I get very outwardly excited in competitive and intense moments, but kind of the day-to-day process for me is just execute and move on. And Coach Emily brings a hugely different approach. Her energy, her excitement, enthusiasm is definitely more outward than mine. So I think that helps relate to the team, helps give them a different vantage point, different perspective. And additionally, having been a student athlete at Lewis and Clark, and just the passion she has for the school and the team and her experience is something that's immediately relatable to them. She has the expertise of having gone through the 4 years and understanding what challenges you might face as a freshman. I think she talked about some injuries she had her freshman year that she learned from and adapted to, and then went on to arguably the most decorated career for a woman at Lewis and Clark. So I think she can relate to them directly and in that way as well.
I mean, that's a great way to segue into talking to you, Emily, and introducing you as an assistant coach to our audience. When you found out there was an opportunity to join the staff at Lewis and Clark, what were you most excited about? What kind of brought you to this opportunity?
Yeah, I think, kind of as soon as I moved back to Oregon a couple of years ago, I wanted to be involved somehow in the program. I missed the team. I missed that experience. So I was really happy. And I think the thing that I was most excited about was just getting to know the athletes, and finding out about who they are, about what their goals were, how to achieve those. And then just to get to know them as people has been really, really fun. It's been an interesting year to start, for sure. Probably not your typical, absolutely not. But it's been nice just to see the resilience of the members of this team and get to know them through a difficult time.
You're a member of the class of 2013, so this is a great opportunity to get your catch-up story. What have you been doing since you graduated from Lewis and Clark? Give us an idea of what your years have been like.
Yeah, right after college, graduated in 2013. I actually moved abroad. I moved to Kenya for a little over a year, working for a hyena research group. So I lived in the bush, drove around after large carnivores all day, I sometimes joke that I like peak at 22 just because it was such a phenomenal experience. But yeah, so I had my fun abroad trip, and I then moved back and went to veterinary school at Michigan State University, which is a 4-year program. Graduated in 2018, and then moved back to Portland for work.
And now you're a member of the coaching staff at Lewis and Clark. We're talking to Emily Thomas and Matthew Barreau, the Lewis and Clark cross country coaching staff on lcpioneers.com live. And Coach, you heard Emily describe these experiences that she had post Lewis and Clark. And I'm curious, what opportunity is there to have somebody who's gone through the program and then has had, 7 years removed to experience life, that you can kind of show your current student athletes, hey, this is the opportunity. This is what you can achieve at Lewis and Clark.
You don't mind repeating that real quick? Technical glitch right in the middle of the
No worries. I'm just basically saying, what advantage do you have having someone like Emily now on the staff, where your current student athletes can kind of see firsthand an outcome from going through the Lewis and Clark College program?
Well, the study of programs are so amazing at Lewis and Clark that they're kind of a bugaboo for us, because we're a year-round competitive program. We have cross country and then the track season. So finding a semester to go abroad without interrupting a season is, kind of literally impossible. So first, I like Emily's experience after college. The idea that you can do a year abroad, you can do kind of that gap year between college and life. A different perspective. So, I like that for sure. But I like that she, went through struggles as a freshman, went through those injuries and adjustments to coming to a new area. Not unlike almost any of the freshmen we had this year. So she can relate to them with that, and then going on to find, success, find great teammates, and just a passion for, her own experience here.
We always like to ask the student athletes, Emily, originally why it was Lewis and Clark that you chose to pursue your collegiate, program and run collegiately too, in your case. For you, what was it about Lewis and Clark that attracted you to compete for the Pioneers?
Yeah, I think Lewis and Clark was a perfect fit for me, and I'm so glad I found the school. I grew up in Michigan, but loved the Pacific Northwest when I had been here with family before. It's just such a beautiful area, kind of seemed magical coming from the Midwest. And then just the school, just being very academically focused, making sure that it was a place that I would get a really good education and set me up for life after school, but also have a really great experience while I'm in college. And then I think D3 was perfect for me athletically. I think that it allowed me to have diverse interests but also still compete at a high level and still really push myself and kind of get to where I wanted to be as an athlete, while just being happy and having the balance and also getting a great education.
And you heard Coach Barreau talk about some of the struggles you had with injuries. Now, on the coach's side of things, how can you use your firsthand experience, whether it's dealing with injuries or running a course or increasing your ability to perform? How do you kind of reiterate those stories or reframe those stories for current student athletes? How's that valuable?
Sure. I like that a lot is the same since I was here. Of course, some has changed, but when we start competing, I've run on a lot of these same courses that the athletes currently do, and remember them very well and remember the difficult parts, and hopefully I'm able to kind of pass along some maybe insider info from what I remember. I think, injury and training wise, I got pretty lucky that I learned really quick, kind of how to keep myself intact. My freshman fall was pretty rough. I moved from a completely flat, pancake flat landscape of Michigan, and then suddenly started running hills for the first time in my life. And of course, my IT bands were not pleased. And so I learned that I had to get in the ice bath, even though I didn't like it, had to spend time in the trainer's room rolling, had to keep communicating with my coaches at the time, and to keep myself intact. And all of those things are incredibly important for every athlete to do. Just know what they need to maintain their body, and then just the communication aspect is huge.
You're watching lcpioneers.com live, presented by Pios Stream. We're on Tuesday through Friday, 11:30 a.m. Pacific time on Facebook Live, and our past shows available to watch on demand at lcpioneers.com inside the fan zone, as well as on our YouTube page. Our guests are Emily Thomas and Matthew Barreau, the head coach and assistant coach of Lewis and Clark Cross Country. And Coach Barreau, I'm curious to get your take then on entering the spring. Kind of give me your focal point. What are you concentrating on when it comes to how you move through the upcoming semester with your team?
Well, there's still going to be some uncertainty ahead. Currently, the track season is scheduled to happen. Races are being scheduled. We don't have the schedule yet, but they're being scheduled. The conference championship is still currently on, so we have those on the docket. But as we learned in the fall, we might have to adjust and change on the fly. At any rate, we know the students want some competitive opportunities, so we've built in the series of time trials or tests along the way that, in the absence of actual races, we'll have that opportunity for them. I think the thing I'm most excited about, for this spring is now that we've kind of gone through the semester together, there's been a lot of learning, by the large freshman class, especially, but by everybody. And this is a great opportunity to jumpstart that next level. Can we take the lessons we learned from the fall and actually apply them, and not wait until next fall or the next year? Can we learn those lessons quickly? Can we apply them quickly? And can we move, take a big step forward as a team?
And there was one question that Emily just made me think of is describing switching from Michigan and coming to the Pacific Northwest. And it applies as you're still actively recruiting over the course of the spring too. When you describe the opportunity that exists to run in the Pacific Northwest and some of the uniqueness that not only the area, the region has, but specifically Lewis and Clark has, what kind of message do you spread to those that you talk about that opportunity?
Well, I've been fortunate to have lived in some of the best running areas of the nation: Flagstaff, Arizona, Boulder, Colorado, two of the kind of dream settings for runners, if you will. But aside from the altitude, I don't think you can beat what we have here. And I'm a little biased in saying that, clearly, but at the same time, the major company in the running world, Nike, is headquartered right next to us, and they have one of the most successful training groups in the world that's based out of our city. And so I got to say that Portland's a phenomenal place to run. And then specifically Lewis and Clark, it is tough to beat, being able to step, literally off the campus at the law school, and you're on a trail immediately. The Tryon Creek State Park, which you're showing a video of, is a phenomenal training ground. It hurts some flatlanders like Emily, initially, because it's a little bit of nothing but hills, but it's soft surface. It's 10 miles of trails, and it's literally right there. So it's very hard to beat the training surfaces and locations that we have immediately next to campus, let alone what's available throughout the city of Portland. 300 miles of trails. Our track is where one of the major professional invites is held because of its location, its setting. It's surrounded by trees. It's tough to beat.
Emily, as Coach talked about, you're one of the more decorated student athletes at Lewis and Clark, and you still have the number 3 mark all time for any women's cross country student athlete. I don't know if it was the regional at which you set that mark, but it might be a different race. So I'll just ask, do you have a very specific race that you recall from your time competing?
I actually do. I think my favorite moment in all of Lewis and Clark cross country and track was actually my senior year conference meet. So we had done very well the previous 2 years. The women's team had won the conference meet, and coming into our senior year, I guess just to be blunt, our team was stacked. I mean, we had a lot of amazing athletes. We had a wonderful senior class, and we were coming back as the two-time champion. And I think we were expected to do well, but we did very well. And it was the most memorable race because I was kind of neck and neck with a girl from Willamette for the majority of the race, and then was able to get her in the end. And so I won my first cross country conference title individually. And then I was expecting the Willamette runner to get second. And so I'm in the finishing chute. I turn around and I see my teammate Melissa, and I wasn't expecting her to have such an amazing, like, kind of last strong kilometer. And she moved up so much in our team and just had this phenomenal race. And it was so exciting to see her. And I think we probably had 3 more athletes like in the top 10 or something. So we were very dominant that year. And it was like every single one of the kind of our conference team had a great race. And it was just such a good culmination to a cross country career, and set us up well to go into the regional. And that's the next race with our regional, which is where our team meet at to nationals. And it was a really, really good moment in my cross country career.
I can just see Coach Barreau right now salivating at the idea of championships and all the stuff that you were able to accomplish with that team.
Mm-hmm.
Emily Thomas, Matthew Barreau, I certainly appreciate you both taking the time to join us. It's a pleasure to catch up and hear how you're doing, and wish you all the best of luck. Thank you for taking some time out of your day for us on lcpioneers.com live.
Thank you very much, and I'd like to put a final plug in. Tomorrow is the final day for nominations for the class for the Hall of Fame at Lewis and Clark, and my co-interviewee is a great person to nominate for those out there.
Nice plug for sure. Thank you both, and we really appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
All right, that's Emily Thomas and Matthew Barreau joining us on lcpioneers.com live. And what a great segue Coach Barreau gave us, as yes, the deadline to nominate for Hall of Fame inductees is January 15th. We prior in the past had March 15th deadline, and so have moved that up a couple of months, and that'll be the deadline on an ongoing basis, is January 15th of each year. So if you have someone you would like to nominate for the class of 2021, you can certainly do so. Read all the criteria that's required in terms of individual and team nominations. There's also opportunities to nominate for meritorious and lifetime achievement as well. You can find those forms on our website easily by going to lcpioneers.com/nominate. So from Coach Barreau, Coach Thomas, to tomorrow talking golf, we'll have Drew Groshong join us on January 15th. That's our show coming up tomorrow. Final guest of the week. Drew is a class of 2017 graduate of Lewis and Clark men's golf, and much like Coach Thomas that we just spoke with, is now back helping with Lewis and Clark from time to time. Drew was kind enough too, going through some postgraduate, I think it's med school to be specific, has been working a lot lately, and so he was kind enough to agree to wake up in the morning tomorrow and join us after, I think, doing a bunch of night shifts this week. So my big thanks to Drew. We'll talk to Benji Bromberg from men's track and field, and Scott Pasapia, a former Lewis and Clark men's basketball player, now an assistant women's basketball coach at Lewis and Clark. We'll have those interviews plus more coming up next week. So for everyone who made it possible today, including you for watching at home, I'm Ryan Goff. Thank you so much for having fun with us. Big thanks to Emily Thomas and Matthew Barreau for joining us today. You can find all of our past interviews on our YouTube page, youtube.com/LCPios. Until we see you again tomorrow at 11:30 a.m. Pacific time on Facebook Live, please bookmark lcpioneers.com/live to find us most easily. I appreciate you taking the time. We'll see you again tomorrow for more of the show. Goodbye, everyone.
My favorite spot on campus is like right outside the Dovecote, little benches, and there's flowers growing there, and you can get a little coffee at the Dovecote and sit there.
My favorite spot on campus is definitely the weight room. I get that everybody loves like the gardens or the manor house, but our facilities for athletics here are actually amazing too, and the weight room is definitely my favorite spot.
My favorite spot on campus would either be the glade outside of the athletic facilities or South Campus. What is my favorite spot on campus? I really like the back porch of the Manor House. It looks out on Mount Hood, and on a clear day, it's super beautiful just to sit around with friends.
I'm Casey Jones, and I teach a range of classes: general chemistry, organic chemistry, and also some advanced classes. And I have a research lab that currently I have 4 students working with me as part of the Rogers program. The summer experience is a way to get really deeply involved in the science that is here and be able to start to define what might be what you want to do next. So the brown bag gives our students a chance to explain their research and really show the context and the application of what they're doing to a very broad range of students and faculty.
It's interesting to be able to communicate to other scientists what your work is, and it forces you to learn how to talk about your subject so that not only experts in your field can understand it, but others can understand it as well, which I just believe is a good life skill.
To talk about your research in a way that anybody can understand it really is a valuable experience, and it's something that you don't get a lot of practice for except in these contexts, because oftentimes you're giving a presentation to a classroom filled with people who know basically the same things that you do, but in a brown bag, you have to be able to explain and provide motivation for everything that you're working on and why it's important and why it's relevant to be studying.